I was in a serious relationship. I was engaged. I was all in.
Can we put better fail-safe things in place to say, okay, God, now I'm going to do this with you this time?
And, you know, as a Christian, like, relationships are intense. There is nothing casual. It is all uncasual with dating, with engagements, with getting married.
Again, it was a conversation with someone that a good man is not necessarily a godly man.
Oh, that's great.
And I was just meditating on that. And it doesn't mean someone who's been in church for 20 years. It means someone, like you said, who's pursuing God.
The Christian gospel that we are made in God's image, therefore inherently valuable. That's it. You know, the only relationship status that actually gives us any value is our relation status with our Maker.
So have you been back in the dating world?
Well, lightly.
Tell us a bit about that.
Welcome to the Magnify Conversations. My name's Ruth, and I'm the founder and CEO of Magnify.
And my name's Rachel, and I'm one of the hosts of this podcast.
Magnify is a global community and content platform focused on equipping women like you to grow in and impact your sphere of influence. We truly want to see you thrive in all areas of life and want to display what faith can look like at the center of that too.
We started the conversations because we wanted to have real discussions about things that matter. Money, relationships, and work, all through the lens of faith and our relationship with God.
Ultimately, we know as multifaceted women, things are rarely one size fits all. So we speak with many different women who are from our community and hear their stories. We hope you enjoy this episode of the Magnify Conversations.
For this episode, we chatted to Rio Summers and got into what it looks like to date again after the end of a long-term relationship.
Rio is the founder and director of Summers Studios Limited, which provides content marketing strategy, creative direction, and PR.
We were really thankful for Rio's vulnerability in sharing her story and also speaking about the realities of navigating the dating scene in today's world. We hope this episode is really valuable and resonates with anyone going through something similar.
Let's get into the conversation. So I'm looking forward today to getting into this conversation with Rio and Rachel about dating after having a long-term relationship. I think it's so important that we talk about this. So many women go through this where they've had a serious relationship. It comes to an end, and that question of how do I move forward? How do I heal? How do I get back into dating if that's something I want to do? Again, and I'm so ready to talk to you guys about it. But first, we have a quick icebreaker,
Sure.
just to ease you in, Rio. So,
Yeah, no probs.
what is your favourite city that you've been to?
What a question. Oh, I can't isolate it to one.
Okay.
Okay, at the moment, Lisbon. Wow. Have you been to Lisbon?
I've not, but I would love to go.
been.
Okay, I
Yeah.
highly recommend it.
Okay.
It's really affordable.
Yes.
I was blown away. I had I'd kind of seen some nice reels on Instagram, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to Lisbon. And me and one of my best friends, we went for just 3 days. Wasn't enough. You need to go for a week last year, and just fell in love with the city. Everything's just tiled and beautiful, and everything's like a real overload on your senses. Which, if you're a creative like me, that's great. It was really stimulating, but I loved it.
That's amazing. So I really am excited to talk to you about, you know, your story and really where you're at now and what brought you to this place. And I think when it comes to having been in a serious relationship, I mean, you've shared with us that it was a very serious relationship, how you've been able to heal and go forward. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Absolutely. So I was in a serious relationship. I was engaged. I was all in. We were applying for a residency visa. We were moving to America, or I was moving to America. I shipped all my stuff over there. And the spoiler alert is that it didn't work out, and I had to end it. We got engaged just before COVID. And then, you know, the whole world just kind of imploded. And so many things happened, let alone just the trauma of COVID. And, you know, suddenly we had to reassess all our priorities and what mattered to us and, you know, what was our calling. People lost jobs, people lost health. We all lost this sense of stability. And as a result of this kind of earthquake that was taking place in the world, there were these, you know, cracks that started to come out in our relationship. And, you know, we were just navigating a really high pressure. And out of that came, some kind of really serious concerns and some rumblings, which I then began to sort of think, okay, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Am I thinking that this isn't right? Do I even dare to think it isn't right? And, kind of this kind of murmuration that was going on in the back of my mind whilst I'm also kind of planning for marriage and prepping for marriage and prepping to move country and also kind of getting over, the world is unstable. And, so what do you place your trust in? Can I place my trust in this person and in this future? So, as a Christian, like, relationships are intense. There is nothing casual. It is all uncasual with dating, with engagements, with getting married. And I guess to an extent, I felt like, am I even allowed to start thinking about this? What does that mean about me? What does it mean about this person I'm engaged to? What does it mean about my view of marriage? Is this a reflection? Because I think we tend to introspectively start to blame, start to kind of just carve out a little bit about, is there something wrong with me? And I was in my 30s when I got engaged. This was going on in my early 30s. COVID meant the lockdown, so actually our engagement was completely in lockdown, which has its own dynamic and a part. And I guess I just started to kind of introspectively process, what do I do?
Right.
What do I do now?
Yeah.
Who do I speak to? Do I just end it? And ending a relationship at any point is horrible if, unless it's like really obvious.
Yeah.
Okay. But
still challenging.
It's still really
regardless.
challenging.
Yeah.
And, I've said yes to this person forever.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking it's not forever. And so I began to kind of talk that through with some people. And actually that kind of spun me back into this whirlpool. Because people would kind of, I noticed that as I'm saying, this has happened, what do you think? I'm thinking about this. They would sort of look at me, and then the first thing they'd say is, how old are you now? And I would go, what? I don't understand. No, I've just told you. Like, I'm telling you all this stuff. I need some. And they're like, oh, but I think you can probably make that work, or I think you should make that work, or there's grace for that, or because you probably won't meet someone now. It's much more likely. You probably want to start having kids now. And that was just really grueling for me. And I think there's so many women in their 30s dating, engaged, presumably, who actually the threat of, or the risk of losing someone and not finding somebody else starts to inform the decisions that you're making. But you're making the decisions based on fear, not based on an assurance. As Christians, we have an assurance. So it was a really wild time. I learned so many things, and I'm still learning so many things. But I did kind of come out of that, and but for a long time I was kind of stuck in this trap of misplaced value. And there's so much mixed messaging, isn't there, in the church, and particularly in the church. I mean, there's mixed messaging the world over, but particularly in the church, I think there's a lot of mixed messages about marriage. We place high value on marriage and families, and that's important. That is, that is a witness. But sometimes it goes too far, and it becomes this idolatrous value, or it becomes this value system for your personhood. So, so often the church says, oh, you'll have, without kind of explicitly saying it, you'll have value when you get engaged. When I got engaged, my value, my status really did alter. I noticed it alter. Retrospectively. At the time, it's just a feeling, but retrospectively, I can see that. And, if you peg your value on meeting the right person, getting married, and having children, that's a value system that is going to inherently break. Because if you don't get it, what then?
Yes.
Am I good enough? Am I attractive? Am I desirable? Why them, not me? So then you're into comparison, you get into resentment. You get into, a whole whirlpool. And honestly, I do think the church has kind of let down a lot of singles with this kind of mixed messaging. And we don't live to that. We have the uniqueness of the Christian gospel is we have inherent value.
As you're sort of speaking, I can just see this trophy almost that a lot of us have placed high up. It might not be marriage, but for a lot of women, it's this trophy of, oh, if I can just touch that, then my life will change.
Absolutely.
And I think the beauty I found of dating is that, it's not all rosy with a man. So I quite quickly was like, if this is the trophy, there's got to be something else behind it, because men are like smelly and like things like that. I just thought, is this what everyone's striving for? Because men aren't all that. But I know exactly what you mean when you say there's a value that immediately we're running for this prize, we're reaching out for this thing.
Yeah, totally.
And even you end a relationship and you think, I've got to get back into that race to strive for this prize and this trophy. How did you, now that you sort of had these questions that you've asked yourself about your value and where that really comes from, how did that inform the decision to kind of keep going and keep building this value now that you realise I'm not going to place value in that. I'm going to find out what really God says about me and how valuable I actually am.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you don't know where your values lies, what the foundation of it is, before you get what you think is going to give you the value, you won't feel valuable when you get it.
Right.
And so, the Christian gospel that we are made in God's image, therefore inherently valuable. That's it. The only relationship status that actually gives us any value is our relation status with our Maker. And so I just think I'd forgotten that.
Right.
And I think it's very easy to forget that when you're in the throes of kind of relationship trials, or when you're dating a lot of people as well. Because you're just like, I've got a goal, or I'm ambitious to get married, and that's great. There's nothing, or you have a dream to get married, or a dream to have a family. There's nothing wrong with those, balanced on the foundation that nothing. And it applies to everything. It applies to career. It applies to financial status. Like none of that is going to shake your value if you have more or less. But if you let it spill over into that, then you're into identity, you're into meaning, you're into purposefulness, and then it just becomes this really isolating kind of fear. But I think when I ended it, it was the right thing to do. I'd got to that point very laboriously. And actually, I think I was sort of sitting down at my desk and just kind of working away at something, and I just felt this was actually, I just had so many voices, and they were all fear-driven voices. Right. What if this? What if this? This isn't going to happen to you. Do you want to be alone? Do you want to be alone for the rest of your life? Because somebody had said that. And finally, I heard this kind of, perfect love casts out all fear.
Yeah.
And I thought, wait a minute. What am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? The future? I don't need to live in the future. I need to live in the present. Right. My future is secure. That is what we know. But I've forgotten it. And as soon as I kind of just felt like I've pulled back curtains and some light came into this very, insecure place, then I started to hear other people's voices. And then eventually I started to hear my own. And when I started to hear my own, I knew that I'm okay. I've got great things. I love elements of my life. And out of that, I think once I ended it, there's definitely a grieving process. Right. I think, women tend to grieve very differently to men after relationships. That's how I'm going to say it. But that, this was serious. I was going to marry this man. That was the rest of my life. You don't bounce immediately, right? Yeah. That does not happen with life-altering moments.
Back and
or if you do, maybe someone needs to have a cup of coffee and just say, "Are you okay?" What's going on? Yeah. So I think it definitely took time, but I did have this assurance that it was the right thing to do, in that decision. And I think if you, when you have that assurance, and when you have the assurance that God's going to give you a future, don't know what that looks like, don't know if I'll get married, don't know if I'll be single, fine with either. Yeah. But it is the right future to pursue with God at the helm, then I think then you do start to heal, and you do start to think, actually maybe I will start dating at some point. Maybe I'll meet someone. Maybe you'll bring someone in my life. Maybe I won't. Maybe, and I always say that God has been so kind to me since I went during all of that. Why not? Let's add another layer. I decided to start my own business and go freelance.
Wow. Let's add another one.
Just add it to the pile. The stirring pot was boiling over. But, it was, God's just given me so much more in that than I even thought was possible. I really didn't think that the opportunities that I would be having in my work, the fulfillment that I have in my work, this upskilling, the working around incredible leaders and mentors and then being at the table with them, even in just a short period of time, I didn't think that was going to happen. So there was so much going on. And I think, you always look back and you think, my goodness, there's so much going on. I was stepping forward. I wasn't in this kind of quagmire that I thought I got stuck in. So I think, if you have that assurance, you do just keep walking and you keep trusting, and eventually things will heal. Do you think you need good people around you?
Yeah.
You need good people to talk to. And a lot of relationships, long-term, long, serious relationships end really traumatically.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pain, really easily triggered pain, unspoken pain. And, that does need to be factored in. If you know people who have ended their engagement, go and talk to them.
Yeah, don't just slide by them. Yeah, awkward.
Ignore the conversation.
This was my experience. For the most part, people did not know what to say. It was. I remember 2 weeks after I'd ended it, I kind of told. Well, actually, no, it wasn't 2 weeks after. It was probably a month after. I hadn't told anyone. I told my mum. I felt like she would distribute this news effectively. My mum is the most absolutely incredible woman, really one of the most incredible women I have the pleasure to call mum, but of knowing. But she's good. She'll just say, oh, by the way, this happened, and I'm sure she did. But nobody knew what to say. Nobody knew what to say, and it just got awkward.
Right.
And then you feel unseen. I really do think that these conversations, which is why it's amazing what you guys are doing, these conversations are really lacking inside a church community too often. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. Now I'm like, let's talk about it. Yeah. But at the time, I really needed someone to say, what's going on?
Yeah, to broach the subject with you, really.
To
acknowledge what had happened.
Feel like going up to someone saying, hey, Rachel, guess what I did last night? Feeling not great right now.
I'm really passionate about what you're saying, because people don't know how to do endings well. So, and I always say that people just don't know how to do endings. They ghost people, they write a text and it's something, it's a skill, crazy things that people can do. And I think if we just got better at, what you said, you were asking yourself questions that started to open you up to, is this what God really wants? And it's okay to ask these questions. And even if you see someone going through a breakup and say, why do you sense God taking you that direction, and just helping people to navigate that, especially in your inner circle. I remember, I think I've been dumped so many times I can count. But I remember just calling my male friends, they're so good with breakups, harsh, but they just be like, bro, look, I've seen the way you've been acting in this relationship.
This is so true.
Yeah, they just come for you straight away. And then I'll tell them, oh, it's over. And they'll go, oh, thank God, because you're acting crazy. Yeah. Let's move on. But they just really made it more comedy. So I didn't feel, oh, I've just lost my trophy at marriage opportunity.
It's so intense.
It's so heavy. So I was having this heaviness of, I've just lost another potential husband. Yeah.
and in your 30s.
Yeah, and I'm coming to the end of my 20s, so I'm like, you need to get it together. And they would just make light of it. I mean, they weren't even thinking about that. They're like, oh, you're so over the top, you're so dramatic, this guy's a loser anyway, we're going to tell you he was a loser. So it's just having people that can even make, joy is a great thing, laughter is medicine. Absolutely. So I think definitely even having conversations where this was bad, but you're sharing it, is so powerful.
Yeah.
It really kind of brings like an ease to it as well of the pain when you can just release it a bit, just release the pain to different people.
There's an amazing role in women coming alongside women, and you know, and men coming alongside women, and men coming alongside men, and women on men. But you know, there is just, you know, what we're doing now. There is something amazing, and like vital role for women to say, hey, you know, I saw what you're doing at work. It's amazing. Yeah. Like, you're doing, that's amazing. How are you feeling about that? You're really courageous. I'm proud of you. Yeah. Let's talk about what you're struggling with, your vulnerabilities. You know, I don't know how many women have said that to you.
Yeah, not many, but I have support. But
of course,
I think it's amazing when someone does notice you and say that to you. Or I've had a woman at church say to me, oh, you don't need to worry about marriage. Like, that'll happen. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
and it's
releasing.
It washes over you, you know, and then the dating is not as serious. So I have had friends who said, I can't get back into the dating world. I can't do this again. I can't get out there, like eat good food,
that was,
you know. How did
have you been back in the dating world?
Yeah.
Well, lightly.
Tell us a bit about that.
I should caveat that I'm very, very happy single.
Okay.
And I am dating, and I'm open to dating. Yeah. But I'm not proactive. There are some women.
Right.
Like sit on, I didn't use Hinge, but I would schedule my dates, like fill the weekend with them.
You said you loved dating.
Oh, I loved dating. Like I love meeting people.
It's just
so. But again, I think it so goes back to that Christian value of this I want this goal, and we're putting this weight on marriage. So dating even becomes rough because you're looking for. You're not really getting to know the person. You're trying to hit a target. And that just takes the joy out of meeting people.
It's future living. You've got to stay in the present. The future's so not guaranteed on anything.
You have to be present,
And if you don't achieve it, like the demoralization is just gonna, you know, I think social media is really dangerous for this particular topic because, you know, it isolates you. It's like overwhelm, buy this, have that, look like this, feel like this, take this knowledge. It's like just this kind of bombarding. I mean, there's great things too. I work in social media, I love it. but you know, it is just really intense and it isolates you. And then it slowly starts to kind of scratch at your being and scratch at your identity. And, you know, who are you? Are you happy with yourself?
Right. Why are you alone?
What are you contributing to the world? Are you important? Significant?
Yes.
Massive. So I do think, you know, I mean, that's a whole other,
it's really important because I think I have friends who watch so many shows about things that are triggering for them. Yeah. So you're afraid to be alone and then you watch tons of romance stuff that makes you cry and think, oh, always be alone. It's like, girl, why do you keep watching that? Like, I would just watch, I don't know, like catwalk shows or something, just nothing to do with love, just anything but that, because if that's my weakness, why would I keep exposing and kind of punishing myself? And I think we, like you did, have to take responsibility for the fear or that, you know, this message you keep sending yourself.
And it's scary, you know, I think, some of the prayers I prayed were like, I need a sign. I mean, I needed a sign for too long. Like, there was so much. And now I look back and I think you had all the signs. You had the helicopter, you had the ladder, you had the raft, you know, you had all the signs. Yeah. But you pray like, I can't hear you, I can't see you, I can't, because you're listening to the wrong voices, you're listening to the lies. They're lies. You know, this world will devour you if you let it. Well, we do let it. I let it too. But it was just a myriad of lies and fears. You know, social media is carving away at us, and you do have to put practices in place. You know, there is wisdom and practices in place, in putting practices in place that do keep you focused on what matters, that do draw you into the presence of God if you're a Christian.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm Sinead, one of your co-hosts.
We know so many of you already watch these conversations, so if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, hit the button now. It really helps this important content to reach even more women around the world and ensures we can keep bringing these conversations to you.
Let's get back into this episode. What practical, for you both, like what practical things did you do to build wisdom, having made mistakes previously? Because I always say that, does pain have to be the navigator for why we now make good decisions? Can we put better fail-safe things in place to say, okay, God, now I'm going to do this with you this time? Yeah. What were some of the things that either of you have done to say how I'm going to apply this wisdom going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, now when I approach dating, I think there's obviously, anyone who's been in a long-term relationship or been engaged, like I was, you cannot take that into the next relationships. You need to be ready, I think, to step into that as I'm not taking that.
Is that one of the reasons for you that you say like you're lightly dating? That you feel like, do you know what, I want to make sure there's been not a severance is a strong word, but like a real end of what was, and that was for that, and that was great in its time, but that came to an end. To not carry that into another dating situation and try and put that expectation on somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that's part of why you've kind of been dipping your toe in?
I'm sure that's a really big part of it, and I think there's one thing which. Were you dating in your 30s? Were you married?
No, I was married. Yeah.
I will tell you. When you date in your 30s, when you date,
teach me your way through.
No, there's no teaching. When you date, but it's relevant. When you date in your 30s, suddenly everyone has an opinion, and they have something to tell you. Like, well, first of all, it's are you dating? Are you getting out there? And what are you on? You on apps? Let's have a look at your profile. Oh, you can't put that. And you think, this did not happen in my 20s. I was very free to sort of kind of be there, but. I think people so want you to be married or be in this happiness, or what they feel or deem will give you happiness. And, a lot of that is they just really want you to be loved. And they want you to be secure, and they want you to have that kind of person, your person, so to speak. So it is, it comes from a genuine place of love and care. But actually they have so many opinions. And so I think when you do start to date, I dated in my 20s, got engaged when I was 30. Now I'm in my 30s. It's like a whole different landscape, whole different sense of pressure. And there's time. Time is like a ticking time bomb, kind of go. So, I do think it's very, very different. And I think you definitely don't, you have to be able to release the pains or even the great things, great things that you had with somebody else. You're not going to have necessarily that same thing. And I did. When I was ending it. One of the real weights on me was this idea of, I can't do this again. So, I can't introduce this person to person to somebody new and all the great things, all the bad things, all the nuances, all the things that you have to put up with. Like that is tiring. And I think when you're dating, you have to find a way to balance that continuously. And dating is so different now.
Right.
Yeah. Like this is it's
different.
It's a different game.
What for you? What's different now in terms of what you're looking for when you're dating? Is it very different? Do you find yourself way more like your standards have changed, like they've lifted, or you've felt like you've had to not let them go, but do you feel that pressure to kind of, I have to lower my expectations, or are you looking at it with really fresh eyes?
It's a big question. It's a big question, certainly for women, again, in their 30s or in their 40s, or divorcees at any stage of their life, or single mums, there's so many layers to kind of out of the norm 20s Christian as well, dating. And I think it's very hard for me to say what I'm looking for. I guess I'm not looking is probably like the thing. I am not on, so I'm a really bad example. I'm not like you. I am not diving in head first. I'm really, like you say, that's my toe. It's very nice. Water's tepid. But I'm not on dating apps. But if I meet someone, I'll go on a date. You know, I'm happy. I've asked people on dates. It's, you know, I'm kind of open to that, but I'm not pursuing it.
Yes.
And I think that is just because I have this like really deep rooted contentment. And I'm really, you know, like just loving where my career is going as well. That's not to say that, you know, you can't have a relationship and all these things. You certainly can. But I just feel, you know, really kind of content. I feel like God's really worked in that. But that's where I'm at today. It doesn't mean that I'm not emotional. It doesn't mean that some things happen and I think, that's very triggering. But I do have, you know, a lot of my close, you know, friends are really want to get married. They have a really strong desire for that. They really want to have kids and they're really anxious. And so we need to get better at kind of mentoring that, supporting that. What I'm looking for, I really don't know. You've said, you know, what you're kind of looking for. And I probably know what I'm not looking for.
Yeah, I was going to say
More so,
like,
right.
Certain, you know, flags. I definitely think, you know, when you have been engaged, when you've been in a long relationship, planning for, you know, looking to the future, you definitely know what you will and will not compromise on. You definitely know what your own weaknesses are. And so you do need to be compatible. I mean, something I learned, you know, big time was actually you need to really enjoy what the person you're, you know, with does for a living. You know, I'm a creative, I'm in production and media. If someone doesn't really resonate, even they don't have to want to be in it or you don't have to work in it, if they don't resonate with that, that's going to get really hard because that's what you're doing, that's your calling, that's what you get excited about, that's where you have some of the biggest highs of your, you know, your lifetime and some of the biggest lows. If you can't resonate with that, that is going to be a really big problem. That was something that, you know, we experienced, and another big issue for me are obviously there's certain theological values, that we all. I mean, they shouldn't all be primary issues. Like we need to calm again. We need to calm down, step back, take a breather, and say, okay, we still love, worship, honor, pursue, glorify God. It's going to be okay, but. There are some theological values which will filter in to how your marriage works, how you'll raise your kids. And we do talk about that in premarital. I don't know if you guys did premarital. I did premarital. I didn't find it the greatest thing. It wasn't the most helpful. I feel like you kind of glaze over a bit and then I imagine you get married and go, wow, blinkers are on. But, you know, there are, you know, I'm openly egalitarian. It would be very difficult for me to date a complementarian because when we get into roles and we get into work-life balance and family life balance and serving and, you know, volunteerism and in different things and again, job appreciation and that's going to get kind of rough. So I guess theological values are kind of, you know, I've got my blinkers on and other things I'm really not, I'm really willing to compromise on.
I think the word compromise is interesting though because compromise is just going a little bit below what you know is right. And especially as you're growing as a woman, there's things that maybe you think you can tolerate with the faith. I suppose for me with faith. So, if you've been with someone that's never on time or not responsible, then you meet someone who shows up on time, they're good with their kids, they might have children. You didn't plan to be with someone that has children. I've been there where, I didn't want a man with kids, but here's this person showing up on time, you know, paying for everything.
I'm sensing this is a real thing for you, Sinead.
Giving me chicken, just giving me what I need.
Time is really important.
Time is important to me. But then I'm never on time, so it's ironic.
You need to be with someone who's timekeeping.
Yes, someone to encourage me in that way.
You strengthen each other. You know?
So I think my question is, when the compromise, especially with your faith, is actually taking you away from God. I've been in that situation where they were happy to go to church with me, but they would just completely disengage from the word, and they'd say that, it makes you, like you as a woman, good, but it does nothing for me. And deep down, it would like break my heart. But then I would look at all the great things that this person was doing and think, oh, well, you know, I can just live my life, my Christian life on this side of our house, and they'll come to faith eventually. I'll be like Smith Wigglesworth's wife. I'll convert him with my goodness
over time.
Yeah, and again, it was a conversation with someone that a good man is not necessarily a godly man.
Oh, that's great.
And I was just meditating on that. And it doesn't mean someone who's been in church for 20 years. It means someone, like you were saying, who's pursuing God. And I think, again, in that, when the time is ticking, are you willing to ask yourself that hard question that, is this someone pursuing
Such
God?
a
How
real
do you
question.
slow down the timer and say, okay, I know I want all these things.
Yeah.
Such a real question.
You know.
And that was my position.
Your
I was
trade-off,
engaged. Am I willing to compromise on these things?
Right.
At the risk of not finding someone else.
Yeah.
That is not a reason to be with someone.
No.
It's okay. It's okay to end a relationship.
Yeah.
But this is a massive question. You know, I recently read that, you know, there's a third more single Christian women in churches than men.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Okay, we all. I mean, I'm so aware of that statistic.
Anecdotally, I would just
Right.
is it more, is what I would say.
I mean, it could go up.
Yeah.
But, you know, that if you look at that statistic, you think, okay, there is always going to be a third more women who there's not enough men for them. So what do we do with this group of, you know, incredibly valuable humans? You know, and I think lots of women, you know, on the topic of, okay, lots of women meet good men. There's incredibly good men out there, Christian and non-Christian, inspiring, good examples, would make are great parents. But marriage is hard, right?
Yeah.
Okay, testify.
It's fun,
Children make it harder. The world is really polarized.
Yes.
You know, it feels like there's like a thrashing all across the planet in every sector: politics, schools, education, relationships, health. You know, there's no stability. And so actually, when you go into marriage, my view, please tell me, because you're both married, but my view is that, you know, you really, you know, what can you foresee that is going to make more instability, more thrashing? But I do feel for a lot of women who do meet wonderful and good men, and they are dating them, and maybe they are inclined towards marriage, and maybe they are interested in going to church, like you said, and maybe not. But I think, you know, quite interestingly, in the first church, in the first century, you had more Christian women across Europe than men, because in the early kind of, you know, first church centuries, pagan women, as in non-Christian, so like non-Christian people, once they had one daughter, if they had another daughter, they got rid of them. They'd throw them to the dogs. They would sell them into slavery, and often actually it was Christians who would take those girls and raise them up. They would become Christian in themselves. They would adopt them and care for them and love them and nourish them. And so actually all across Europe, women played an incredibly pivotal role in sharing the gospel, you know, witnessing what it means to be Christian in the world of that day. And of course, then they would grow up and marry non-Christian men. And, you know, before Constantinople was the Pope, actually you can see so many men who became Christians through the example of their Christian wives. That is not to say, that is not to say that you know, I'm going to marry this wonderful non-Christian man and he's going to become a Christian. It is so not a guarantee. I think if they're going to Alpha, I mean, I actually think if you're going to marry someone, you can actually put some very established boundaries. That would be something else I'd definitely learn. You can say, I love you, I'm open to marrying you, but you need to come to Alpha. I need to see you actually, you know, deeply and profoundly look into this, because this is my identity. This is my purposefulness. You know, you're not talking about this is something I do on a Sunday, something I like.
Or a hobby,
this is kind of my philosophy and some good moral systems. This is what, you know, I live for this. You can't love someone who's, you know, genuinely pursuing that kind of relationship as a Christian and living out their faith like that without actually you're loving a piece of Jesus. So I do think there's so much going on there.
It's great advice.
It's a hard one. I feel for them.
Yeah, I mean, we've got some audience dilemmas. So I'm going to read one out to you and
Yeah, go
see
for
what
it.
you guys think. Please feel free to
Sure.
chime in. So it says, my ex of 7 years called off our engagement a year ago. I'm starting over again at 34 years old, and I'm aware that my biological clock is ticking. I'm open to dating again, but I don't want to rush into anything because I'm feeling the pressure to have children. How do you ensure you're not rushing into the wrong thing?
Wise woman that she doesn't rush into that. Did you say 7 years?
7 years.
That is, and a year ago he ended it. That's
Yeah.
so intense. Man, I know that space really well, and if I just put my mind back into where I was at that point, I do think you have so many voices just saying, and some of them are so bad. Some of them are just so bad, saying like, just got to get out there. We tend to use the phrase. I heard this a lot. Got to get back up on the horse. And I came to absolutely hate it. I was just like, what? You're implying that I'm on the ground.
Yes, on the floor.
On the floor. I got to
Wounded.
pick myself up. I really wasn't on the ground, on the floor, wounded, this kind of poor, I was wounded and I had some serious things I was processing. I still am, and I'm still learning. But I think, just the way, the language that we use, everything is coming for you in your 30s and into your 40s. And I think that there is so much wisdom not rushing into anything. The Bible is full of stories of people who do not get to where they need to get to in a short period of time. That's very frustrating if you like things to, you're dreaming for things and you like things to happen and you're feeling the weight of biological clocks. It really doesn't help that doctors, if what's it? If you're over 31, you are, your fertility is geriatric. I think is the term.
It's the term,
Not okay. We need to change the language. We really need to change the language. And churches need to, we talked just now about that 1/3 of women who they are going to be single for whatever reason. It's not, if the number of men is 1/3 less and it stays the same, you have this extra third group of incredible women in your churches. The church needs to really reconsider, what are we doing? What are we preaching on? Are we praying for men? Are we doing male outreach? That would be a practical suggestion.
This is a question that must be.
But also, are we raising up these women? Are we giving them? Are we listening to their voice? Are we mentoring? Are we? How are they? What's their volunteerism? Are we just giving them the Sunday school job? Please, no more. What's their gifting? What's their calling? You need to invest in them. Are they single mothers? Are they divorced? Are they widows? Where are they in that journey? And I think, with the statistics are there, the Christian community needs to envelop that group and realign their thinking. But to her question, I think if the church is standing with her, coaching with her, not idolizing marriage, not preaching that as the be all or end all, and not saying things like, biological clock, just get yourself out there, get back on the horse. It will happen. I definitely think there's also so much value in creating a small group of close friends, women or maybe mixed, and just talking to them about that. And, I'm pretty sure it's 75% of marriages come from a friend who introduced a friend.
Right, wow, 75%.
Yeah, so,
meet some people, get in some groups.
Well, I mean, you know
all about that, Sinead.
But there's, if you're journeying with people, and it's hard. Look, it's hard because when you're, most of my really close friends are now married.
Right.
I'm having kids, and they're in their next season. But there's a next season for me too.
Yes.
It's not limited, being, again, your relationship status, doesn't limit what you're doing, what you've got to offer, who you are, and all that. So I do think it is harder to create that small knitted group of friends if all your single friends are getting married. But if you can find maybe even just like a next generation above, a lot of the women that have spoken into my life most profoundly are actually kind of like the next generation above my friendship group, who are, their kids maybe a little bit older. They are so much wiser than me, and they've got so much experience, and they've made time for me.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to them. They've made so much time for me, and I want to do that for younger generations too. So there's a lot of kind of inter-mentoring, but I do think that's really key to stepping out if you're anxious. Those anxieties are so real. That relationship ending is not a rejection of her. She is desirable, beautiful, valued, got so much ahead of her, right? I really feel that now. I couldn't feel it before.
Right.
I feel that about myself, I feel about others. And I think so, I just think giving it time. Often when you don't think about stuff, something happens.
That's true.
But
That's great.
problem, I don't know if you feel this, but I feel like often the problem for women is we do fill our time and we do get quite proactive, and then we get like really into it and really creative, and then we become a little bit intimidating, But I do think it's a real gift of women that we are introspective and we are big at volunteering and all that. I think we've been crafted, really to experience our gift, men and women, and I think that leads. You can meet people through that and feel fulfilled on the way. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you. So tell us how we can find you. How can we support you as a Magnify community?
Sure. Well, I work in podcasts like you guys. So I work with, I freelance. I have my own production company. I work with a whole heap of different people, different creatives, too many. Which is great. But I do. I work with the Unbelievable podcast team, so people can like and subscribe. Rate the podcast in your podcast provider after you've rated this one.
Thank you.
But I think, you know what I think? I think for me at this stage of where I'm at in the dating thing, as I'm, figuring all that out, I do think the best way is to really come alongside other singles, other single women, and don't underestimate their courage and their grace. So many single women are who want to get married, or maybe they don't at that season. Like I'm good at this season, but I don't know where I'll be in a year. Maybe this will be a very different conversation as I whatever comes. But I do think so many Christian single women are exposed to events or conversations that are really like actually quite triggering, and they like bridal showers or baby showers. I've gone out of bridal showers. I've done them all. I'm now into baby showers, and talk to the single people, or talk to the childless married women, or talk to the divorcees. That there is so much going on, and I think actually coming alongside of them, giving them a voice. Throw somebody a business shower. Don't just throw them a baby shower. I'd love a business shower. In fact, I'm having a business shower. You're invited.
Thank you. I'm going to ask anyway. So.
Yeah, no, you must come.
I want to see what that's like.
And see, that was this woman I just mentioned, who's a little bit older, has just completely given me so much, and I'm so grateful to her. But yeah, she kind of came to me. She's like, "Why don't we do a business shower?" That was intrinsically so validating, so seen. And that's what Jesus does, right?
Yeah.
He steps in and he walks alongside us. He sees us, he hears us, he moves with us, he celebrates us, he mourns with us. And so I think really where I'm at, that is the best way to support me. Obviously, like and subscribe to podcasts that I'm working on. It's great. But yeah, I think that's probably like the most moving thing for me, to see that in other people's lives as well.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, Rio.
Thanks
It's
for
been
having
great.
me.
I want to come
love
to the business
chat.
shower though, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be just outside of London, in like a farm. I don't actually know what that's going to look like. We're not wearing this. it's not appropriate. We can go farm chic and cake. I mean, I don't know. How do you turn a baby shower into a farm shower,
Got to get creative, but I love that.
But things like that make a difference, and it doesn't undervalue the baby shower.
Yeah,
That's massively valuable. Marriage, dating, children, grandchildren, it's hugely valuable, but it doesn't dictate one's value.
Absolutely.
So, don't want to lose that either.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies. This has been a great conversation.
Great conversation.
Thank you.
Yes. I feel like I need to go and don this outfit before they take it off me.
Thank you for joining us for this week's conversation. We hope you gleaned as much from it as we did.
If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with all of our episodes at the Magnify Conversations.
And if you have a story to share and would like to be featured on the conversations, get in touch with Team Magnify through magnifycollective.com and head over to our contact form.
We'll see you next Monday for another installment. From all of our team and crew, see you next week.